Mike here. So we're putting some coarse woody debris in this small stream here in the Laurel Highlands in western Pennsylvania. It's December 2023. It's almost January, and it's 50 degrees out. Damn nice day. Rained a hell of a lot yesterday. That's why the water looks so high right now. Normally it wouldn't run quite this much. This is a vernal stream, so some summers the water didn't even really run much at all for a few weeks in the summertime. This year it actually ran most of the summer because it rained pretty steadily 2023 here in this part of the country. So what the hell are we trying to do here? So this little channel runs across the property. The whole side of the hill here, a few dozen acres, drains, and it all collects into this one particular little stream here, and then goes down around and it leaves the property. This stream was channelized so badly, it looked like somebody had just dug it with a ditch witch or something like that. I mean, it was ridiculous. And this time of the year, with this much water flowing, it would have just shot straight down through. And it was a fairly narrow channel here, with fairly steep bank sides. And so what I've been trying to do the last few years is just put a little wood in there and try to slow the water down a little bit. I mean, I could bring my tractor down here, and I could, in the dry season, I could put like series of dams and things like that in. That's not really what I want. I don't want to hold back so much water that eventually, if I don't engineer that dam properly, it could be topped or washed out, and then I'm causing mass amounts of erosion downstream. Really, I just want to kind of mimic what nature tends to do, which is dump dead trees into streams and creeks and things like that. So is this a unnatural amount of wood in this particular spot? Yeah, probably. But historically, in these streams and the mountains and things, you would have found lots of logs and lots of things like that. And historically, you wouldn't have some critter like us that came through and stripped all the land of all of its vegetation, and caused vast amounts of erosion and topsoil loss. And really, a lot of these channels are, I believe, so deep because of that erosion, because of the loss of trees and things like that. So anyway, just trying to mimic nature a little bit and provide a little bit of resistance. I mean, all we're going to do here is slow that water down a little bit when there's a little bit of water, but we're going to slow it down a lot when there's a lot of water. There's just a hell of a lot of friction going on here, a hell of a lot of turbulence. I mean, what I do, sometimes I'll drop a larger, these are maple and red oak and stuff. Sometimes I'll drop larger ones down in the bottom, try to get it to seat down in the bottom pretty good. And then I found it really is necessary to throw some more weight on top, because those suckers will float. Whenever you get that melt in the springtime, those logs will start to float up and then head on downstream. And they pile up and form a new arrangement. A lot of the detritus that's behind them probably gets blocked up again, but just trying to get something kind of locked in here so it stays. Some of that water is undermining underneath the logs. Not ideal. There's probably a beaver dam analog or something would be great, but I'm one guy here, and I'm not out repairing my dam all the time like a beaver would. So I'll just throw some wood in there. Wood is going to be fairly durable, fairly long lasting, and yeah. So you got some different conditions here. You got some upwelling. When the water's going underneath the log, it might be carrying some of that sediment out, and eventually the water level lowers because there's less resistance and stuff, which isn't ideal. But with that upwelling, probably going to oxygenate the water a little bit as it reaches the surface. You get a little turbulence and all this good stuff. But mainly, I'm providing some resistance and keeping that water back and trying to get up over the banks. And I've been doing that. The bottom of this is, I haven't really walked in this in a few years to see what it feels like or how mushy it is there in the bottom. And it's definitely soft. There's a lot of detritus, a lot of leaves down in there, a lot of sediment down in there, what washes off the dirt road up there. But it's definitely filled in the bottom of the channel a little bit. And it's less defined than it was. In some places, it's really broken the banks quite a bit and stays wet a larger amount of the year. Here's another spot. You see some fresh stuff that I dropped on there. There were some older pieces down in there. Here's some older stuff that broke loose and kind of recollected itself in this spot. There's some fresh stuff I just threw on top to weight it down, to hold a lot of those pieces down, to kind of seat some of that stuff down in the mud in the bottom, to seal it a little bit, and again, just provide some resistance. But you know, beyond just providing resistance and slowing the water down and raising the water table, it also provides some habitat for, I don't know, some little macroinvertebrates and stuff. You know, even the treetop there, you know, cut one that was up the hill. It laid down here. I cut the trunk up into sections, flopped it down the hill. Again, just one guy. But then the top, cut it into smaller pieces. It's not as useful in building stuff like this, but I try to chunk it up a little bit, and over time it'll break down, you know, deposit itself in the water and maybe get trapped, you know, in the wood. But, you know, back to the wildlife and macroinvertebrates and stuff, you know, there's a gradient of moisture in some of these logs. Stuff on top's bone dry, stuff in the waters really wet. You know, shit's gonna find where it wants to live. Stuff starts getting punky, fungus moves in, insects that feed on fungus, insects that feed on insects that feed on fungus, the whole happy deal there. Down through here, again, this was highly channelized, and I mean, this is a mess. This is a mess. There was a maple tree up the hill that got cut a few years ago, and this is where the top ended up. I just kind of chunked it up a little bit just so that it eventually would start to lay down. And then whenever, you know, fall comes and the leaves fall, that shit just gets trapped in here, acts as a big sponge. And, you know, when the water table comes up like this, or the stream comes up and starts to spread out, it soaks that shit up. And holds on to it a little bit, at least for a few days or a few weeks, so that when we do get a torrent of rain or we get a melt in the springtime, not all the water goes right away. And we hold on to some of that. And I've already noticed this past year or two that it's a lot greener down in here throughout the summer. It stays green, you know, holds that moisture and stuff. So that really excites me. This was kind of a beaver dam analog, if you want to call it that. I mean, I put a series of stakes in. I put some wood in, but I really didn't put a lot of small diameter wood, which was what most BDAs seem to be. This was a bigger cherry tree that I dropped. I was really just trying to get started, and I got a little happy with the wood, but I also wanted something that was going to stay for a long time. Wasn't going to require a lot of maintenance. So, you know, really just something to make a good start to this whole process, to hold the water back. And I mean, I think largely it's been fairly successful. I packed some mud and some smaller debris in there as I was building it. You know, the top of the tree ran up here on this bank, so I chunked it up and flopped it down, and that's what all these other little smaller logs here in the front is. I kind of tried to fill it in, but over time you're going to start to get leaks, and it's going to get undermined. And, you know, I got a spot here where this ground is notorious. It's a lot of clay, but then you'll find these rock layers where the water will just disappear and then reemerge somewhere else. So in the summertime, once the water starts to slow down a little bit, the water will disappear and then reemerge down below. But right now, there's just enough water that just stays around. So the main reason I'm doing this is because this is a vernal stream, and I don't want it to be. This summer it rained a good bit, and this ran all year, which was great. It never did dry up, probably because of the rain. But eventually I want to get to the point where doing this type of work all the way up up the hill to the various places where all this water coalesces, comes together like this, raising that water table up, breaching the banks, getting back into the hillsides with that water a little bit, so that the ground around it is not draining out, because this is not channelized nearly as badly as some of the stuff is up there in the hill, where there's incised cuts, there's active erosion of mineral soil. It's really bad. So by holding that water back a little bit, it's not just the volume of water you can see, but it's the volume of water back in the banks that you can't see, you know, where the ground around it is saturated. That's what I want. I want to retain that, so when we do have a rain event or the spring melt, that water continues to drain out year round throughout the summer, and the springs keep flowing. So anyway, that's coarse woody debris as far as I'm concerned. There's some academic stuff. Check your extension office, whatever. But I mean, I don't know. it ain't hurt nothing as far as I can tell. My biggest concern I got to watch is I can't raise the water too much or else I start to impact that culvert there. But right now we're pretty good, and I have some wood on the backside of that culvert that helps to really protect it. This is the other side of that culvert right there, going across the road there. Problem here with this culvert is you used to get a lot of woody debris that would get stuck in that every year. So a few years ago I dropped this maple log, and haven't had any problems ever since, because that water comes from up there, but mainly on that side, and it would carry all that shit down here and plug that up. So that's worked out really well. So it's one way to kind of protect it a little bit. Got some water coming off the road. Yesterday it was very, very muddy, but since the rains have stopped, that's slowed down. So I'm gonna get my chainsaw and work my way up through this tributary a little bit for the next hour or two. Of course, woody debris day, isn't it great?